whatever TPA isn't.
Now TPA has the hard decision. Which one are we going to take? Do we
They
take
could actually take something else in this situation entirely. Let CLG.EU make the decision, actually.
And they could counterpick off of that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just because Oriana's left in the pool doesn't mean they wouldn't be able to take something else in that case. Crowd is actually cheering for Anivia pickups to be hit. Maybe they want Type A Assassins to get Oriana so that CLG.EU can get Anivia. But I'm just going off by the percentages you see down below. Don't forget, guys, you go onto IGN.com/IPL, watch the stream there. You get a little vote option there, and I believe there's something involving someone can win a computer if that happens.
Yes, Origin PCs, which are the official PCs of IPL, so definitely cool. If you guys vote, the leader of after the entire weekend will actually be given that or given an Origin PC. So that's definitely big. I'm curious if they're taking their time.
I mean,
they might grab Anivia and then make Froggen consider taking that Oriana pick, and they actually go with Oriana. So just straight off, now CLG.EU, they're going to be able to get that Anivia if they want it, but Toys, his Oriana play is so devastatingly strong.
One little things they could do too is they can leave that Anivia to the last pick, because now they don't have to take it.
That's true.
They can wind up picking other champions like their bottom lane here to secure that they get the AD and the support that they want. Wouldn't be surprised to see Ezreal and Lulu coming out again, because that would shut down synergy with Oriana's command Shockwave. They also could just pick up a jungler and something else and then leave the rest of the game open from TPA. They're going to have to pick a top laner. They're going to have to pick a jungler as well, and CLG.EU could pick around.
And a good point of leaving open that Anivia is they could grab Lee Sin as well. So, there is always that option. There's a number of really strong guys still left. Maokai being grabbed. So looking to put a lot of pressure on that mid lane, which is interesting because Toys in that mid lane, you very rarely see him go down to ganks. He's usually one of the safest mid laners in the game. So looking for that aggressive jungler, particularly at that mid lane, it's going to be tough to see if that works out for him, but we'll see if Snoopy is primarily looking for the other lanes.
Well, he could potentially go into that top lane, snowball it off if they decide to lane swap one again, or he could be going to the bottom lane, just getting that control over the jungle, over that dragon pit area. Although having Maokai gank early, he could potentially get a level 3 gank down on Stanley. If they do wind up burning that flash from Oriana, he is not going to be as safe as he wants to be in the mid lane. Snoopy could swing around again, or depending on who Froggen picks, he picks someone aggressive like Lee Sin in that mid lane, he can pick up a kill on Oriana himself. If he picks someone a little more passive like Anivia, he's always going to have the threat of going in on Oriana at level 6 with no flash, and then Toys, of course, is going to be put into that defensive posture.
Yeah, and there's the Mundo. We're expecting it from Lil Balls. It's his #1 jungler, and he can really put a lot of pressure around the map. So CLG.EU, they need to pick safe lanes. They already have Ezreal, so that's going to work out for them. The Lulu would work out as well. But the question is now, I think it's going to solidify that as an Anivia pick, because Anivia will be able to, shut down Mundo in a lot of those team fights, just split him from the rest of the team, and then just take him out very early on. But the question is going to be, what is Wicked going to be playing in the top lane? Because he's going to need a little bit more survivability. If they go with this Jarvan, we've seen Froggen play it, and it's so aggressive in that mid lane, and particularly in the early game, they could just try and beat out TPA before Mundo or Oriana can get going.
The best part about this is I don't know Wicked to be a Jarvan top lane player. Jarvan can go into a 1v2 lane. Now they're hovering over Lee Sin, so I'm going to completely shut up about that. But the fact is, they still have the mind game. They pick a Lee Sin or a Jarvan. Yes, Froggen plays those, but it could still potentially be a top lane matchup. Wicked, of course, not really known for his Lee Sin or Jarvan. They still have the mind game potential, though. And they're hovering over this Xin Zhao for a very, very long time. So it's either a very elaborate and awesome troll, or they're just really getting our hopes up.
And there's the Anivia, there's the Rumble as well. It was kind of the expected pick. Lee Sin in this situation, he'd basically be jumping into his doom against Oriana, Nunu, and Mundo. Like, it would just be certain death for him to jump in there. But really aggressive late game now from CLG.EU. Anivia on Froggen, I mean, his mechanics are incredible. TPA picking up the Caitlyn to go with that Nunu lane definitely makes sense. Olaf is still available. It's just kind of a concern for if they think he's going to be separated along with Mundo, and then maybe the rest of the team sits back. So, we could see maybe a Nidalee to shut down, Rumble or something. Olaf would make sense, though, because Olaf does very well against Rumble usually.
One of the things that they could be doing here
Elise,
is
maybe?
they still have the strong team fight presence from the Oriana command Shockwave. They have the Nunu Absolute Zero, and they have Caitlyn who could stand in the back and just fire away. But one of the things they can also do is they pick up that Nidalee, they have split pushing potential. So if CLG.EU doesn't play as aggressive with this comp this time, since they don't have the Lux, they have Anivia, Although we did see when CLG.NA was playing a little bit earlier today, they could get aggressive with that Anivia and push towers down. They're probably not going to play that way. Having that Nidalee, which they're hovering over right now, that threat of the split push, they're going to pull Anivia away from where the rest of the team can potentially go in, get a 4v4 engagement, or just push down towers.
That is exactly the key. And if they went with the Olaf, that would force them into team fights that they wouldn't necessarily be able to win. They'd be running right into a dangerous situation.
Or a wall.
Or a wall. And so now, like you said, they can avoid that split push, and we all know how strong his Nidalee play is, so that's definitely going to be really aggressive. I'm kind of interested to see who the support is now, and Lulu, probably the main target here, but Zyra also. Zyra would completely shut down Mundo if they were able to take that Zyra pick.
So Crepo hovering over it, taking a little while to think about it. Lulu or Zyra seem the potential pickups. Sona wouldn't necessarily be the worst in the world either, because Sona does do very well against that support Nunu if they're going to be going into a 2v2 lane. So also if they pick up that Zyra and TPA does want to sort of lane swap, they might not want to now that they have the Nidalee pickup. Those roots coming out from Zyra are going to be devastating.
Well, and Zyra also gives them objective control. So, being able to take control of Dragon or whatnot, but they're actually going to go with the Lulu. So they don't want to allow anyone to be burst down pretty quickly, and that's going to be one of the dangers of going up against that Orianna. But we'll see what's going to happen now, because we have a show of two of the best mid players in the game, both playing their #1 champion, Orianna on Toys and Anivia on Froggen. And if you want to learn how to play these champions, I mean, there's no better opportunity, because both of them mechanically are incredible.
You might want to start taking notes now, because this game is about to get underway. Type A Assassins on the verge of elimination from IPL5. They lose this match, they go home. CLG.EU, they lose this match, they got one more try, but then if they're all have Anivia and they have some fairly good heroes on their side they like playing, well, then of course, you're going to be in the low spirits going into that game #3. Regardless of the fact, though, I can see you guys at home watching the stream really are cheering for CLG.EU.
Yeah, it was about even before the picks. Once Froggen got Anivia, right over to the other side.
All right, so I'm going to have to be the devil's advocate here. I'm going to have to get a crowd reaction from here, seeing that who is going to want Type A Assassins to take this to a game #3. Let me hear you guys. It's okay.
It's all right, but come on, guys. CLG.EU, they already won game #1, and Froggen, he's playing Anivia. So let me hear it if you want to go for CLG.EU. Yeah, it's pretty clear who the crowd favorite is here.
What?
The Season 2 championships might be going down in this situation, but Stanley is incredible as Nidalee. I'm kind of curious how he's going to be dealing with this Rumble lane, but one of the best things about Stanley is we've seen really unusual builds that no one's ever even considered working before, and he's used it against, champions like Yorick, which are difficult matchups. Nidalee doesn't really have enough. She has some harass early on in Rumble, but not enough to shut him out of lane, and then Rumble's going to come out with a lot of damage. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does in that lane to try and win that matchup.
I'm really looking forward to seeing if Stanley picks up that Spirit Visage that he's gotten on Nidalee in the past couple games we've seen him play. Not only is it going to help his heal when he goes into just regular Nidalee form, even though he's going to be building as an attack damage kind of split pushing champion, if he gets that Spirit Visage, he's going to be reducing his cooldown so he can heal and attack more. He's of course going to be getting magic resistance in order to defend against Rumble, and that heal is going to help him heal himself even more. So we're going to have to see, like you said, it's innovation across the board here, and then we have Froggen on Anivia. I don't know what he's going to build. We've seen him build a little bit more standard recently, but I believe there's a game where they were playing in the winner's bracket, I believe yesterday, where he just decided he was just going to build Giant's Belt and a piece of this and a piece of something else, and then they won anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen unusual builds from in the past, and the reason is he's always said, if you're good enough, if you land your skill shots, then you can build whatever you want, because Anivia's base damage is so high, and so oftentimes that tank works. CLG.EU sitting out, though, if TPA actually decides to come in for this. Toys, he catches an eye on Snoopy, but if they follow up, Froggen trying to get the stun, can't quite grab anyone. And so we've seen unusual builds from Froggen in the past. We've seen Warmonks, we've seen Sunfire Cape, these tanky kind of builds. We've seen, Doran starting off the game. It's just really whatever he wants for the current situation.
And I mean, Type A Assassins almost walked into a similar situation in game #1 where they gave up first blood and wound up giving it to Yellow Pete, really snowball Ezreal's the AD carry of the century in that game. Now they're being a little bit more cautious. They did poke their heads in there. Orianna, though, Toys' ball is giving them vision so they don't walk headfirst into these situations. Putting that in the brush near the mid lane, they do know that CLG kind of looking to put a ward down over by their raids. Are they going to give it up? Are they going to try to contest this? It looks like TPA a little bit afraid. They want to try to bait it into that brush, but Crepo's going to put it down right in front of the raids and then walk away.
Yeah, both teams have
a pink
not
ward
really the strongest level 1, but Stanley wearing down Wicked a little bit. And yeah, the pink ward keeping an eye, making sure that they can't get any vision control. So wanting to make sure that Lil Balls, he kind of stays incognito through this game. So that's definitely going to be an interesting situation. But Wicked making his way down to the bot, he's actually going to be laning against Caitlyn and Nunu. So doesn't want to lane against Stanley on Nidalee. You know, just the harass might be a little bit too much for him. But it's going to be interesting to see because Rumble is one of the weakest champions in that 1v2 in the first couple levels. He can range farm with those harpoons, but that's going to be devastating for him to be matched up against such an aggressive lane.
I think they are actually TPA Assassins are going to be lane swapping themselves, so it is still going to be Nidalee against Rumble, but BB and Mistake are still looking around their own jungle. Snoopay taking a safe start at his red buff, knowing that might not be contested as hard, but it looks like CLG.EU might be the ones going for an invade, and the AD and support of TPA Assassins staying around. They're going to want to get the trap down on the crap, but having to burn the flash away. Mundo with the burning Agni taken away, does land a cleaver, but is blocked by Snoopay. Flash forward, are they going to be able to get away? Flash Frost from Froggen, kicking up first blood there. Now Mistake's going to go down. Snoopay wants to get in the second kill of the game, and CLG.EU are off to another great start.
They were able to kite back into that Anivia stun, and that was absolutely beautiful play from CLG.EU. Now that he has that red buff in that mid lane, oh god, is that a scary Anivia, because he can just auto-attack Harass, and then whenever Toys stops for a moment to try and trade Harass with him, that's when Froggen will land the stun. And so it's going to allow Anivia to just completely control this lane. He actually throws the stun out, trying to grab Toys, being worn down a little bit himself, but early blue steal from CLG.EU. Snoopy's in a great position. He's level 3 with that double buff, and he's looking for Toys. He might try a flash twisted advance.
Yeah, they're going to try to get the gank onto Orion, the mid lane. Toys knows that there's a flash twisted advance, but Snoopy's in tower range. Mundo Cleaver goes out, not going to get enough damage. Flash Frost from Froggen will back them off. They have, however, burned that flash from Oriana now.
He's just a little bit too much vision for Toys. He has the quick reaction time, but he's still really low. He has low mana. He doesn't have that flash anymore, so he's at a serious disadvantage for Froggen. So it was the play from Snoopay really just to completely shut down that mid lane. And now Mundo, one of his weaknesses is he's not the best mid lane dueler. Froggen's going to be completely safe in that mid lane against that Mundo pick, which means that he's just going to be able to have his way with Toys. But we'll see what's going to be happening in some of the rest of the lanes. The top lane seems to be pretty even so far, but CLG.EU pushing them pretty aggressively into that turret, and then might try for a lane swap. Krepo's backing, and Yellow Pete is as well.
I think the story is right now, Wicked's doing a really good job against Nidalee in the bottom, even aggressively going under tower. Has to burn his flash. I don't know if he really needed to, but he is going to do that just to make sure he's safe.
Pretty close. One more attack, the flash from Stanley after one more turret hit, he would have gone down. So just being a little bit too aggressive, trying to harass down Stanley, and really put himself in a bad spot.
Snoopay wants to try to come around for Toys again. Is he going to be able to get it? Double buff still taken away. Refresh blue buff. Toys still only level 2. Twisted advantage outside of tower range. The backwards Froggen. Is he going to pick up the kill? Auto attack is going to seal the deal. And CLG.EU with a 3-0 lead.
3-0 over TPA. 2k gold lead this early in the game. And the red buff, it seals the fate of Toys in that mid lane. There's nothing he can do in that situation. It's such a dangerous spot for him to be in. They need good ward coverage. He needs to shy towards the lanes that he has that ward coverage. But now with Snoopy in an advantage too, he could get into early oracles, and he's actually circling back. He wants to hit Toys or Little Balls if he catches them out.
Yeah, Little Balls might be in a bad spot. Throws the Mundo Cleaver though, so Snoopy's going to be deterred. Big story of that mid lane. Froggen is level 5 and Toys is level 2. That is a huge experience disadvantage. Wicked getting aggressive on Stanley in the bottom lane. He's not afraid to spam his spells here, zone out Nidalee, and then wind up overheating and getting that CS at an easier rate because of the increased attack damage. Have to see though if Little Balls can try to turn this around.
Yeah, and now he's stepped back for a second. Little Balls, he does see him, so he should be able to get out of there. He doesn't actually dodge that cleaver. Little Balls going to get some quick damage. His flash is not up, but I think he's going to be able to get out in time. The spear going off. Stanley still going in for the kill. One more attack. Wicked turning it around though, and Wicked so far, he's been in control of that lane just because of the early damage that Rumble has. Once he got a couple of levels on Nidalee, and Nidalee's harass just was ineffectual.
And that's going to be devastating if you're TPA Assassins. Not being able to convert that into a kill. Both of those champions have to go back. They don't have a lot of gold to buy up. They're just really going back to heal, wasting time in the jungle, knowing this Snoopay could potentially gank that mid lane where Toys is level 3 compared to Froggen's level 6. Glacial Storm is already up for Anivia. He's going to be pushing down Toys in the tower. That critical strike from Frostbite can almost one-shot a low-leveled Oriana.
Yeah, it's going to be really devastating. So you saw he backed off for a second into the shadows just to see if he could catch Toys out of position, throw the blind stun there. But the ward, it helped protect him. And meanwhile, in the top lane, some quick damage from Bebe. So they're pretty safe in the top lane. But Ezreal, he should be safe enough to just range farm against that Caitlyn. But we'll see. I mean, we're at the point where that Anivia pressure and Snoopay pressure could start snowballing over the rest of the map.
We did see Pings from CLG.EU letting Snoopay know there's a ward in that brush, but he's going to come up anyway, show himself to let BB and Mistake know that he's there to apply some pressure. We saw him warding that blue buff. CLG is going to want to go around and take that. It won't be up for about another minute and 15 seconds or so. That could be another point just to deny more experience to both Mundo and to Orianna, as well as give that blue buff to either Snoopay or Frog, and just denying resources to TPA Assassins, trying to keep them as far behind as possible considering the advantages they've already gotten in this early game.
And with the early kill on Maokai, I would expect Snoopay to be buying in early oracles, and we've seen really aggressive or really safe wards from TPA Assassins, and Snoopay knows it. He keeps on walking into wards and people backing off. So if he gets that oracles, it could give them the map control to try and snowball that advantage. Froggen coming once again. He will be blind this time, but Toys seeing the ward just as it's dying, sees Froggen over the wall, and now Froggen, with this great gold lead and with a strong jungler, it means he can start trying to take all of the rates in this game.
Wicked getting some damage traded back on him as Stanley hits level 6, now has that Cougar form. Wicked might have to be a little bit careful because Nidalee's going to be able to put out more damage than she can in just her regular form. Even a little bit of a spear, he does have to back off, chugging through some health potions as he's overheated. Only has those sorcerer shoes right now, no health potions left to his name. Might be forced out of lane in just a little bit, but we'll have to keep tabs on how that bottom/top lane goes.
He's turning around, and Anivia is coming down as well. Wicked chasing him right into Froggen. Froggen's going to be able to catch him out. The Ignite coming down. Will be able to get the wall. Will he be able to get the stun? The quick damage, the burst, he flashes for it. The stun not going to hit. Stanley barely backing out. He's going to be egged right underneath that turret. Fortunately, being able to back off, so those minions aren't going to be able to take him down. But Wicked in a nice advantage in that bot lane, still losing the egg form. It could put a little bit of pressure on that mid lane if Toys can maybe get level 6 and then hit an ult.
Well, Toys is going to be coming down by Mundo, wants to take those raids away to try to get a little extra golden experience, but Mundo is also going to need that. Both of them are only level 5. Snoopay, though, only level 5 himself, so Mundo kind of on his way catching up, but he has gone back, Snoopay that is, and acquired that Oracle's Elixir. Hasn't activated yet to start roaming around and clearing those wards out, but it is now available to CLG.EU, and if they're roaming around this hard while those wards are available, just imagine how defensive and devastated TPA Assassins could be if Snoopay activates it and starts clearing out the wards.
Yeah, so he is waiting a second, but I think he wants to make sure Froggen's in a strong situation in that mid lane before he starts popping it. There it goes. So now he's on the ward spree. He's going to be able to clear a couple. And Little Balls, might get his own because he likes going for that early oracles, but it's going to be tough because with CLG.EU's early advantage, he could go down fairly quickly again, and losing that oracles could just completely shut TPA out of this game.
Mistake does spy Snoopay's coming around with the oracles because of that ward there. Snoopay, though, didn't really clear it out, so he's just walking right past it. Maybe he does want his presence to be known. Ping's going down from the side of TPA. Little Balls letting him know that he is there in case they want to try to do something here. They are going to try to defend against this blue buff. CLG.EU moving down to steal it. Yellow Pete not really reacting to the rest of the team, but Froggen is coming up from the side, potentially wanting to try to snipe this one over the wall. TPA, though, they are there as members of 4, and they will actually get the buff on the toy, so Orianna getting her first advantage of the game.
Yeah, Bebe taking a little bit of harass, but being able to pick that up on Toys is going to be really key in that lane. Nidalee actually chasing down Wicked. He gets the Ignite. One more pounce. He's going to be able to grab this. The auto attack actually missing. He misses the spear as well. Wicked trying to turn this around. Stanley just barely able to back out of there. And so you see, once he hits that Nidalee form, I mean, the Cougar damage is just way too much for Rumble, but it's anyone's game in that lane. Both of them have enough damage to take the other down.
One thing Stanley did was dodge the equalizer, so he really missed a lot of the chunks of damage that Rumble was going to put up. But Yellow Pete now getting slowed down by the absolute zero mistake. Maybe a little miscommunication there between him and BB, as BB didn't want to go in on that one. So now Numi's ultimate is down. That could give CLG.EU a little bit of aggression. We saw True Shot Barrage being fired from Yellow Pete, pushing the minions off the tower, dealing a little bit of damage to those champions in lane as well. So we're going to have to see if Ezreal and Lulu take this chance to go back. Are they going to go continue taking those golems that they have been and try to keep up in CS? Gale is technically ahead by a little bit, but those golems on the side of CLG.EU going to even things up.
Wicked being harassed a little bit from Little Balls here. He has the red buff. He's going to get the cleave as well. Wicked's flash is down. They're going to be able to pursue him underneath this turret. They're turret diving for it. Stanley taking some quick damage, but they pick him up fairly easily. And Stanley with that chalice, he has a lot of damage. Meanwhile, on the top, Yellow Pete chasing down Bebe. He will be able to get some quick harass. He doesn't have his ultimate up, but the Ignite is up, so a little bit lower, and Bebe might have gone down.
TPA Assassin's finally able to convert on one of those Mundo ganks, especially in the bottom lane. That's going to be good because it's getting Stanley going. Even though Mundo was the one that picked up the kill, he got the assist goal there. they were able to take out Wicked, he's going to be able to actually farm safely, go back and buy items without worry of Rumble continuing to farm that lane. They are relatively even. Chalice of Harmony, and there is the Kindle Gem potentially going to be turned into that Spirit Visage we were talking about earlier. So Stanley's going to get the ball rolling into his split push Nidalee form, and of course, you can't also forget, when we're talking about Stanley's Nidalee, for some reason, he seems to have the most effective team fighting Nidalee in the world, which is something you don't hear in the same sentence.
Yeah, and that magic resist in particular is really going to help him out in that lane, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Once Wicked finishes a Haunting Guise, I think he's going to have enough damage, and Rumble definitely has enough sticking power that he's going to be able to chase him down for a kill, but they don't even want to lane him against Stanley now, so they swap to the top, they get the first lane swap, Stanley will come back up top, but maybe this could result in an early Dragon for CLG.EU. They have the Oracles, they can try and put some pressure here.
They could do this while the TPA lanes are swapping up. Snoop does eliminate the ward that Stanley just put over that wall. If they decide to pressure Dragon, it might ensue in a team fight, so CLG.EU are going to have to be very careful about their decision making, because all 5 members of TPA Assassins are technically between the middle and bottom lanes.
Yellow Pete pushing into the turret. He's going to back off for a second now. Lil Balls, he does have an Oracles of his own, and so, you know, that's something he always goes for, that really aggressive early Oracles. They're able to clear out a ward, but the concern is if there's an early fight, if CLG.EU forces a situation, Lil Balls might lose that early on, and we've seen that in a couple of the games this tournament, and that would just completely shut down TPA for a significant portion of the game. CLG.EU now forcing that fight. They're going to be going for this Dragon, and they're in the better position to take this.
This is actually a good idea. The notion that Stanley is back up to the top lane. Oriana's Toys is still a little bit behind, so she's actually going to have to go back and just defend after being harassed by Rumble in that mid lane a little bit. So CLG.EU taking the first global objective of the game. They do have about a 2,000 gold lead, 3 kills to 1. No towers have really been pressured that much. This top tower is going to take a bit damage from Stanley, but Rumble was in mid lane this entire time, has a good direct path to the top lane. He's not going to be able to get a lot of damage out on that tower.
And if CLG.EU keeps building on this early lead, it won't matter how strong Stanley's split push is, because CLG.EU is going to be able to bully their way into objectives. So, you know, they're really looking to take control of this game early on. Bot lane, you know, a little bit of a disadvantage for Yellow Pete. Bebe's been very aggressive in that lane, but that's kind of what you expect in a lot of situations from that Caitlyn pick. Getting some quick burst damage, he actually gets away from that built over Peacemaker. That would have turned into an ace in the hole for maybe a kill.
We see Snoop in his jungle just taking away the red buff, probably going to smite that one down. Froggen probably has a decent sized purse as he goes back. 138 CS, 2 kills and 1 assist. I think that's a pretty rich bird. Decided to pick up a Hextech, a Revolver before he goes back to lane in addition to some wards.
And Snoop coming up in the top, he's actually caught out by a trap, so Nidalee's still safe in that situation. Lil Ball's making his way down bot. Bebe getting some quick damage. He gets the build over Peacemaker. He's going to possibly use the ace in the hole. I'm surprised he actually didn't throw it off, because it seemed like he would either get a kill or force Yellow Pete into a situation he would go down, but they just forced them off that turret, and they might be able to grab this if they decide to go for it.
I think what Mundo down in the bottom lane, their main concern is not getting the kill, but pushing that tower down so they can then potentially lane swap once again and give Stanley a lane where he could just sit back and farm for basically forever. Nivea coming down here. Are they going to try to defend this tower? Yellow Pete actually getting caught with the Caliber net and the ace in the hole. Froggen's going to block that one off, so there's not a lot of damage coming out. And for now, CLG's bottom tower is going to stay alive.
Yeah, and you saw Froggen, rather than showing himself, he was sitting back waiting to see if he could catch someone out of position if they went in for a kill. Snoop is up top. Stanley jumping in on Wicked, but he has the backup of Maokai. There's the Twisted Advance, and he's out of that Cougar form, so the red buff, the knockback, they're going to have plenty of damage to take him down, and the slows as well. The flash, Wicked picks up the kill. He takes down Stanley.
Stanley using the flash with a Twisted Advance following after. That did not work out the way he wanted to. CLG.EU taking yet another kill and more advantage in this game. Toy's going to have to be careful now. He wants to take this blue buff. Snoop is in the area, but CLG.EU has no eyes on that blue buff, so they're not going to know he's taking it. He will actually get this to the save.
And again, there's just too much sticking power for Nidalee to get away, but look at this bottom lane. Froggen, he's going to be laning bot versus Bebe and Mistake, and then they're sending their support and AD carry mid to lane against Toys. So that's going to put Yellow Pete in a beneficial situation, but Froggen's so strong at this point, he's going to be able to stall any waves. He walls off Bebe, so he's safe from that harass. Really impressive play just to win that lane.
Whittling down on Mistake as well as keeping Bebe and the Glacial Storm. They're taking a significant amount of damage while not being able to put a lot back onto Anivia. Surprisingly, Caitlyn with her auto attack range, as long as Nuna's trying to zone out Anivia, if Anivia puts down that wall, Caitlyn's not going to be able to auto attack over and hit Anivia because of the way Nuna's playing to zone her out. So that's a little bit of a not good combination between the two champions. Anivia, however, did go back to get her blue buff. TPA going to try to result in getting a tower off this, but Frog once again coming in, barely killing the minions where the tower lives. I think it has a little less than 100 HP at this point.
Yeah, and really, he's going to be able to shut down the aggressive push in that bottom lane as long as he's sitting there. He almost didn't get back in time. Lil Ball's coming up for the top, though. Stanley, Wicked's in a dangerous situation. The cleave does hit, but they don't want to fight him underneath that turret. And so CLG sitting back. They have a really nice 3K gold lead, and they're just prepared to continue to farm in these lanes and just not allow TPA to take any objectives.
Lil Ball's finally doing a little bit of Mundo counter jungling, something that we kept talking about. We didn't see a lot of him doing. Got to be careful though. Krepo as well as Snoopy coming in, ward put in the bush, but there is actually a pink ward from CLG.EU, so they're going to clear that one out. TPA is going to be able to back up, but Froggen in that 1v2 lane looking to gank by himself.
Yeah, he's in a dangerous spot now. Bebe actually getting some harass on him, and he has a long walk to the turret because he doesn't want to walk through the lane. It's kind of a choke point, and it could put him in a dangerous spot. He actually zones with the stun for a second to try and get himself back, and uses a lot of mana AoE clearing those minions, but it buys him enough time to run through the river so he doesn't have to worry about them taking that turret. He's going to be able to get back in time and continue to stall that lane.
Meanwhile, in mid lane, we saw Yellow Pete getting some decent harass down on Toys, burn the flash away from Orianna, as well as forcing him back out of that lane. Now that Yellow Pete's kind of got some free farm, he's actually behind Caitlyn, 152 compared to 117 CS. He's going to need that farm, but one thing that Caitlyn is benefiting from this lane against Anivia is Glacial Storm keeps pushing the minions forward. She keeps taking them off the tower, so Caitlyn is just sitting back there and getting all the free farm in the world, considering that Froggen is trying to keep that bottom tower alive.
Yeah, they're just both AoEing into each other, and Froggen, he's missing out on those raids that he would be getting mid lane, so he's not going to be quite as farmed as he would otherwise be, but he's still farming very effectively, and it's allowing them to get a push on the mid lane. But Yellow Pete not quite catching up with Caitlyn, even when he should be kind of free farming in that lane. Froggen once again coming down. He's trying to start pressuring Bebe and not allow Bebe this free farm, but there's not a lot he can do.
No, unfortunately not. Just being Anivia, he is naturally pushing that lane ever closer towards the tower. We'll be keeping that bottom lane alive for a little bit, and it will still be getting a little bit more control when this dragon does eventually respawn because of how far pushed forward that lane is. Maybe actually trying to recall here, so Froggen is going to try to make a move on something. It's going to be now. Krepo actually coming back down this bottom lane. I don't know if they're going to keep Anivia and Lulu down here, or if that's a signal that Ezreal is going to come back down, but it looks like Yellow Pete's still staying mid lane to try to get farm. They're just going to put a little bit of pressure on this tower before Caitlyn gets back.
Yeah, it's going to be getting pretty low, but I think that CLG.EU, they might be in a situation where they're starting to look to group up because Maokai, he grabs the Aegis. Rumble has that Haunting Guise, which is basically all he needs for his damage right now. And Stanley, even though he has a lot of magic resist, just the sheer amount of spell pen that Wicked has, it should allow him to be successful in that lane. So it's turning into kind of a farm lane top. Neither of them want to get out of position. Neither of them want to force a inopportune fight. And so, all the lanes are kind of slowing down for a second. A quick wall from Froggen in the bot, taking some quick damage against Mistake. And Krepo as well, being chased down by Bebe. And Lil Balls is here. He's got a trap. Krepo has to walk around it, but Lil Balls not quite able to get in range. Froggen is able to shut them down.
CLG might be looking to turn this one around. Yellow Pete as well as Toys moving in from the mid lane. We saw Sneebay coming into the tri-brush, but TPA going to disengage from this one. Now could potentially be giving up their positioning on that bottom tower. Top lane, we did see Rumble burning the Equalizer in a fight against Stanley. And as you mentioned something about CLG wanting to group up, if we look at every single tower on TPS side, besides that top lane, they're at half health or less. So CLG might be looking to sequentially take objectives, starting with the dragon, maybe forcing a fight. They come out ahead, just like last game. They could get kills, they could get dragon, they can get 2 towers, and then TPA, they were so far behind at that point, they just never really caught up.
And Froggen doesn't even give Lil Balls an opportunity to try and consider that dragon. He was sitting in the bush for a second, and he did some quick AoE, took Lil Balls actually down to half life, and then dropped off the wall behind them to separate them. They're able to grab the dragon, build that into a 4K gold lead now. But TPA, they're in a comfortable spot farming here. The question is, it kind of feels very similar to the previous game where, it's still a really dangerous spot for Mundo in these team fights to be running straight at the Anivia. And CLG.EU, they were able to take a slight lead, and then it kind of stalled off for a little bit. Both teams were comfortable sitting back and farming, and CLG.EU was able to take it in the end.
Toys does have flash available, so if they do get Anivia to burn the wall in a not super beneficial spot for CLG.EU, they could flash around or something, but a little more aggression. Wicked just using that Equalizer not only to push the lane forward, but also get a little bit of damage on the Stanley. Toys, in the meantime, is going to be taking his blue buff. He's really happy about the fact he's been able to come back into this game. Now the same exact level as Froggen. Froggen barely saying that 1 HP left on that tower.
And I was just going to say, you want to check out Froggen's build this game because Tear and Chalice is pretty common, but then going for the Spirit Visage and Will of the Ancients, he's almost able to land the stun. He does get it, but Bebe barely able to get that net out of there. And now Snoopy coming up in the top lane, trying to get in on Stanley. They're not going to want to tower dive that, but that build is really strong in that lane, and it's what's allowing him to win this 2v1 bot lane.
And look at the damage he's getting down by putting that critical strike Frostbite onto BB. And then still have Lulu around here, so they're getting the Glitter Lances on top of this. CLG.EU, they want Froggen to push this tower down. They want him to turn that lane around. I don't know, after getting that Dragon, I thought they would have rotated and just started taking towers, but they seem content to just try to stall that bottom lane out, push that tower down, deny as much CS to Caitlyn as possible, and let Yellow Pete try to play catch up.
Well, we saw Yellow Pete, he was struggling earlier on, but he's done a nice job of keeping even with Caitlyn so far since the lane swap. So the lane swap's been very effective. Froggen, he's still out farming Orianna, but Snoopay coming in, Stanley trying to get the kill, and now they have the follow-up.
There he is, Twisted Advantage goes in. Wicked's really low, he is overheated. Stanley still has that flash available, so CLG is going to have to keep this one in mind. Don't know if they're going to be able to take him down here. Snoopay's not going to be able to connect with the Q from Maokai, and it does look like that Stanley's going to be able to get away from this one. Potentially, Wicked might have to go back too, because he is extremely low from that fight.
Yeah, Rumble, he actually had to sit back for a second, using the equalizer, trying to take down Stanley, the Ignite as well. He's able to back out of there, but Bebe finally able to take down that turret. Froggen, he can't hold it forever. Bebe just walking up and snatching it.
No, Froggen deciding the blue buff is finally more important than that tower, so he is going to be acquiring this one for himself. So CLG.EU actually losing the first tower of the game. That gives TPA a little bit of gold bonus to try to get them back into this game, but that could just be the signal now that that tower is down. They don't have to worry about defending that lane anymore. If Caitlyn's going to go down there and push, if they group up as 4 or 5, they still have the potential to take down that mid lane tower that Yellow Pete's been able to push Orianna back for a long time in this lane, get some pot shots off. But CLGU, they just seem content to stay split up. The only two that have really been grouping up a lot have been Snoopay ganking Stanley's Nidalee against Wicked's Rumble in top lane.
Yeah, but TPA, they just finished a couple of items. So the Infinity Edge on Caitlyn, as well as some quick damage onto Orianna. So they're going to be really strong in these fights if they can catch members of CLG.EU out of position. TPA now sending their AD and support up into that top lane. They recognize, even though it's 23 minutes into the game, it's a very slow game, and both of them are very comfortable with sitting back and just slowly pushing. Now Stanley, he can go push the bottom lane, and TPA can try and get a couple more turrets.
CLGU is going to have to do something pretty soon in order to counteract this fact. They are playing that still safe kind of back and not necessarily passive, because we had Froggen pushing that bottom lane against Caitlyn and Nunu, but they're still playing the let's sit back and farm style, which is actually working out a little bit better for TPA Assassins. Yes, CLGU got the global objective of Dragon, and they've gotten more gold that way, but when we looked at the statistics before, as long as Caitlyn's about 40 CS ahead of Ezreal, she's going to be coming out ahead by about 400 gold. Now she's almost 60 CS ahead of Ezreal. So all that stalling did was feed Caitlyn even more CS than Yellow Pete's Ezreal. And now the whole item behind, look at that, 6.6k gold for Ezreal, 7.4k for Caitlyn. That's the speakings of Caitlyn having an Infinity Edge and Yellow Pete's Ezreal not really finishing a major item yet.
And is this a split push Froggen? Because he's going to lane against Stanley now, clearing out that wave. He wants to continue with that farm, but he actually will be able to bully him out of there. But we'll see if he stays there for long. He'll probably want to group with his team. The rest of the team pretty confident, but Little Balls up in the top, they might actually decide to go for this, except that Snoopay and Wicked, they're very strong underneath that turret.
I'm pretty sure that Mistake poked his head out from that brush and they realized that maybe someone else is coming in there. Little Balls is being very patient in that top lane brush. CLG looks like Froggen is going to continue to split push against Stanley. He is getting some decent damage down against Nidalee, but Nidalee does have Chalice of Harmony and Spirit Massage for defense there. So Froggen might not be dealing the most damage in the world, considering he does have a Giant Spell, his own Spirit Massage, and only Will of the Ancients and Chalice of Harmony to his name.
And it's kind of interesting, both of these teams have kind of just made the decision that their late game team is going to be a little bit stronger than the others. TPA on the one hand, they have a very strong defensive team that can either take down turrets or split push, but Snoopay coming up into the top. The quick cleanse from Bebe, he's able to get out of range, and Mistake should be able to back away from Wicked again. So we'll see which one gives as far as we go into the late game.
He did burn that cleanse on the BB, however, he still has the flash available, so Snoopay tries another Twisted Advance. He still has the potential to kite him by netting and flashing away, so they are going to have to be a little bit careful. Little Ball's still in the mid lane, though. He did wait in the top lane for a very long time, has gone back, acquired him an Aegis of the Legion of his own for his team. So if these teams get into a team fight, that benefit is kind of going to be just null and void, a little bit neutral as they have it on both sides. Double Will of the Ancients has been acquired, though. Wicked's gone back, acquired his own after going for that Haunting Guys and Sorcerer Shoes. Rather than going for that Abyssal Scepter early on to continue the magic penetration build, he stopped and gotten some sustain for himself as well as Froggen.
Yeah, and that's really going to help them in some of those team fights when they're grouping together to just poke down members and keep themselves up at full health and not have to worry about the poke that comes from Caitlyn and Orianna. So the Spell Vamp is going to kind of counteract that a little bit. But TPA getting a little bit of a pushing advantage. CLG.EU Wicked actually using his ultimate to just clear out the minion wave. Doesn't want to allow them to take the turret quite so quickly. And Crepo and Yellow Pete, they're just tanking this turret, trying to drop it so they can get that mid one.
All right, so CLG.EU are going to take their first tower of the game. They finally knocked out in the middle tower. Dragon should be respawning pretty soon. Actually, it is respawned already. I just couldn't see it on the mini-map there. So this could be the next point of contention. There are 2 members of TPA Assassins in top lane and 4 members of CLG.EU towards this Dragon area, so they could be looking to take it. However, notifying this, TPA is sending their AD and support down from that top lane. So CLG going to have to be a little bit wary of this. They do have a ward in the
they're going
mid
to
lane.
collapse on Froggen.
Double ward, actually, as they do see it. Froggen, Yellow Pete actually is here, as is Snoopy. They're trying to cut them off from this. A little bit of a pink ward goes over the wall, distracting Snoopy. Flash has to be burned out from Froggen as Stanley comes in from the side. Crepo taking a lot of damage. Snoopy now towards his ultimate only hits Yellow Pete, so the rest of CLG is still free to fight this one. True Shot Barrage sails wide to the right, not hitting any member of TPA Assassins. Yellow Pete does get the Lulu ulti, but he wasn't dying to the ace in the hole anyway. But now CLG.EU getting pushed off their own tower. That's going to be a dragon for TPA Assassins.
Yeah, and the Orianna ultimate almost grabbing Crepo. He gets the quick flash out of there, so no one going down. But really quickly, they're worn down from the poke from TPA. TPA Stanley in particular, he was able to chase them down. They grabbed the dragon off of it, even though they weren't able to pick up any kills. So it's bringing them back even in this gold lead. It's a 3K deficit right now, but they still have that split push potential, and we're starting to see Stanley be a little bit more confident in these fights.
It's a little bit scary now that Caitlyn 278 CS compared to 216 of Ezreal. Ezreal has completed his Bloodthirster and has 2 of the pieces for his Trinity Force, maybe looking like he was going back and forth between the 2 items, but there's no stacks on there compared to the Infinity Edge and now the Zeal almost completed from BB. On top of this, he has the attack speed and movement speed steroid from Nunu, so if they get into some of these team fights, CLG.EU, they're not going to have the same AD damage output that TPA Assassins does, despite keeping down so many of their members early on.
Yeah, but we see CLG.EU, they're grouping up. They want to force a fight at this situation. Froggen can maybe grab someone. Wicked has the damage now, and now that they've completed a number of their items, they feel pretty confident in the situation. They just can't allow themselves to be worn down by TPA Assassins. But TPA, they're really strong at slowing down the game. So Orianna can clear out a lot of those minion waves. Stanley can split push, and that split push is going to prevent CLG.EU from having an opportunity to force a fight.
Very true. We've seen Italy doing that already in that top lane, wanting to take down the tower. Wicked's going to have to go up there and defend, so it's a 4v4 in the mid lane for CLG. And this might actually work out to CLG.U's favor as they continue to pressure that mid lane. As long as Stanley's not in there, he might be one of the scary members on the side besides BB. If they can get in there and they can get a twisted advance on BB, his cleanse is now up as well as his flash though, so it's going to be hard to really root him down. They are able to catch Caitlyn though and get her out of the fight before she starts dealing immense amounts of damage to Yellow Pete as well as Snoopy and Crepo. They might be able to turn this around in mid lane.
Yeah, and Froggen and Snoopy, they were trying to pick someone off. Yellow Pete going down very quickly. The ace in the hole, almost going to take down Crepo, but he uses his ultimate to get out of there. So the quick burst damage from TPA is able to secure it. There's the kill. Actually, Bebe taking down Crepo, and now Stanley zoning CLG.EU. They're all stuck around this Baron pit, and TPA can force a fight.
Equalizer actually was used already by Wicked, so he doesn't have this to try to re-engage everybody. Lowball's taking a brunt of the damage there, but Mundo Cleaver will land on the Snoopy. If he goes down, that's going to be an Oracle's Elixir as well. So CLG.EU going to back off from this one, but TPA Assassins, despite how far down they were in the early stages of the game, are really taking it to CLG.EU at about 30 minutes.
Yeah, they're able to just slowly wear them down with some of their range damage. They take down the mid turret. Stanley goes back up into the top to prevent Wicked from joining with the team.
Little
There's
Ball's
the
got stuck
wall.
in the wall. He gets twisted advance. There's the vengeful maelstrom, but Froggen's going to be one picking up the kill. Absolute Zero goes down for mistake, but the CLG.U's going to flash away from that one. Snoopy flashes into Stanley though. Has to use the Q to knock him back, but Stanley's not giving up yet. Mistaken BB. Mistake's going to go down. Froggen's on a rampage, but Stanley's hot in pursuit against Anivia. Is he going to go down? Snoopy wants to pick up the kill on Stanley though. Toys gets walled off. Froggen's going to get the damage down. Flash Loss does miss. There's the command shockwave. Snoopy's down. Oracle's Elixir has been eliminated from CLG.EU. Froggen going forward, still has egg form. BB has to get out of here. Toy's going to sacrifice himself for the greater good of that one. And CLG.EU coming out ahead in that fight. Crepo, you got to be careful. Exhaust goes out. Yellow Pete over the wall. BB with the cleanse. Not going to hit anyone with the Piltover Peacemaker. Ace in the hole is still available. CLG.EU, they got to be careful.
And once CLG.EU forces TPA into those that jungle area, they can force those fights, and Froggen in particular can shut them down. So Yellow Pete, he's very safe as an AD carry, but Froggen's able to wall people off, pick up those stuns, and that's a really dangerous spot. So TPA, they want to fight in lanes. They don't want to fight in those tight corridor situations because that only benefits CLG.EU with both Rumble and Anivia. So it's a really dangerous spot for them. They thought they had won the exchange, and all of a sudden, CLG.EU coming back on that.
That was just the AoE from Anivia that, like you said, was the positioning in that jungle area, those tight corners, and making people get walled off. Little Balls got caught first. He got bursted down almost immediately. And he's Mundo. He's the tanky one on the team. When you get bursted down as the tanky jungler who's supposed to be the initiator and supposed to live, then you know you're fighting in a bad spot. So really great job from CLG.EU being able to utilize the terrain to their advantage. They came out ahead, now 8 kills ahead to 3. They're still only hanging on to about a 2,500 gold lead, though. So all in all in that fight, things still kind of equalized to the point they were beforehand.
Yeah, and Lil Balls, he actually rebought his oracles, Crepo buying one for CLG.EU, and they're just clearing out wards around this Baron pit. Stanley almost getting slowed by Crepo. They're just kind of forcing him off right here, but it's going to be dangerous if they do try and even bait a Baron. I think TPA would be pretty confident. They have the Orianna to just check with the ball, but also they would be able to wall or keep in CLG.EU in that pit and then maybe poke them down.
We're going to have to see if CLG.EU is just doing a little bit of a Baron bait or if they're actually going to try to start this one. TPA, regardless of the fact, is moving up to try to contest this. They know that if CLG.EU takes a Baron,
Stanley's caught though. He's going down quickly. He has the GA, the Lulual trying to keep him up there. Yellow Pete trying to take him down. The GA will pop. He's right next to his tower, and TPA trying to group up with him. But there's zone from EU with Froggen, with the Ezreal. They're trying to take down Stanley. He almost gets back to his turret, but he does drop. No, just one more attack. Yellow Pete just barely trying to take him down. Finally grabs him, and Orianna, actually some quick burst, almost takes down Crepo, is able to pick up that kill, but Froggen zoning them off once again to try and regroup as a team.
And that was another instance of TPA Assassins. They were about to get in a fight into this tight quarters, even though they popped the GA from Stanley. If he were to get away, CLG.EU would have gladly traded it for everybody sitting in the Anivia wall and a Glacial Storm. Little Ball's getting caught off there. Flash Frost from Froggen, that's how you play it. You don't miss those. Ultimate goes off from Little Balls, but he's running through an Equalizer. Snoopy takes a lot of damage from BB though, drops the Vengeful Maelstrom, and CLG.EU is going to retreat from behind this build, except for Froggen. He wants to go in to get more kills, but they are going to establish a little bit more position around Baron, but both teams are going to decide to back off this one and just settle for wards for now.
Little Balls, he walks up, grabs an Ord. Froggen trying to get the wall off, can't quite get him, and he's going to make his way back into that mid lane. But if CLG.EU, if they can't burst people down when they originally get those snares, then you see TPA, they're able to retreat, they're able to heal back up or use their shields to get themselves into a nice situation. And so CLG.EU, you know, they need to make sure that they grab one kill and then just are able to escape, are able to back out of there. But Orianna has been able to kind of put a little damper on that, has picked up a couple of herself.
And you're talking about that too, that Orianna ultimate was the one thing that stopped CLG.EU from turning on that fight and just going straight to Baron. Being able to catch them in that tight quarter, the tight quarters that worked out so well for CLG.EU on both of those engagements also worked against them if that Orianna ultimate's going to be catching them because they're grouped up in a little area like that Tribush. We've seen in this tournament already, multiple teams getting stuck in that same exact corner and just absolutely melting to these AoE compositions. It's popular champions like that or Orianna they have, like the Rumble with the Equalizer, and Anivia of course, with the Glacial Storm. These are precarious positions they're going to be in, but just look at the damage that TPA is able to output, taking this Dragon down in basically 2 seconds flat as Caitlyn, Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and now Last Whisper been acquired.
Yeah, they do have that range damage, and they're able to take that down. But the concern is what happens when Little Balls engages in the fight, because he drops very, very quickly. So CLG, they want to force TPA into situations where they can wall off those rivers. So, you know, even though they don't have the best Baron team, Rumble's really weak, Maokai adds nothing, Froggen adds nothing, they could potentially try and force a turret or something that might allow Froggen to take a wall off and maybe pick someone out of position. But the concern is if they stall at a turret, they allow TPA to get a farm advantage or split push with Stanley, or maybe even worse, they clump up trying to attack the turret and then Toys gets a really nice ult.
Missile Scepter has now been acquired by Wicked, so he's going to be able to combat all the magic resistance that TPA Assassins has been stacking against him. Guardian Angel being acquired by Toys, 350 CS compared to 364 of Froggen, 2 kills compared to his 4, but we can't forget that when Froggen was level 6, Toys was only level 3 in the earlier stages of this game, so that is quite the comeback here. Guardian Angel means, of course, that he's going to wind up living twice in these engagements, so even if he dies before he can get that command shockwave off, everybody's going to be hovering around him while the Guardian Angel comes back up. All he needs to do is hit the R button before he dies again, and that could be the only initiation that TPA needs.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. But, I mean, really, it's interesting not to go for much damage. He's expecting to hold off a lane the entire game. He wants to be able to win that lane, but that survivability in team fights in particular will really help him out. And we'll see if he can start to put some more pressure, or if Wicked decides to start leading. Wicked hasn't really been able to group that much, except for those main fights around that Baron and blue area, because Stanley is just constantly holding him off.
There's only been 1 or 2 fights where he's actually been able to drop the equalizer in the middle of the team fight, not using it to initiate and having them kite away from it, or not using it in the lane before grouping up for the team engagement. So CLG.EU, they still have some tricks up their sleeve as well. If they're able to corner people into an area with that Froggen wall, if the equalizer goes off, the Glacial Storm goes off, and the Vengeful Maelstrom from Maokai tacks on a little bit of additional damage, True Shot Barrage, of course, is going to be an AoE spell coming out from Ezreal in addition to all this. They will be able to take down Taipei Assassins despite all the resistances they're getting. If they pop that Guardian Angel on Orianna, like you mentioned, she doesn't have a lot of damage, so she's not going to be the most useful asset to her team. TPA, though, they're just stalling out right now. They want Stanley's Guardian Angel to get back up before CLG.EU tries to force an engagement on them.
Little Ball's clearing some wards around the Baron pit, so they have the vision advantage there. There's still a ward in the pit, but Caitlyn moves down bot to clear out all of that farm, keep up the farm advantage over Yellow Pete, and it's actually grown to 120 at this point. So Caitlyn is incredibly, farmed at this point in time. She has the Last Whisper as well, which is going to really help her against some of those frontline tanks for CLG, and the poke is going to be absolutely absurd.
13,000 gold compared to 10,000 gold, 3,000 gold advantage on Caitlyn alone. That is going to make up a large chunk. That's even more than CLG.EU as a team has on Taipei Assassins as a team. We could look at that. Some of the difference is going to be coming in from Froggen on that Anivia. A little bit of the difference, Wicked has a couple hundred gold over Stanley, but a lot of it is just going to be the fact that, yes, they did wind up taking a dragon. Taipei Assassins have also done that, but they kept them down in the earlier stages of the game. There's a lot of wards that have been cleared out from the side of CLG.EU as well. So this game might look a lot closer than it actually is in gold difference.
Yeah, it really is dead even at this point in time, and both teams are a little bit concerned about getting themselves caught out of position, so they can't 100% go in for fights, and both teams have a defensive enough team that they can just stall the other, so it's resulting in not a lot happening. Wicked actually starting to kind of make his way down, but moves back up into that top lane, so just wants to make sure that he's on his way if he needs to group with his team.
The thing is, too, Stanley, even though he's split pushing, he hasn't been able to knock down towers. What he has been doing, though, is keeping Wicked out from grouping with the rest of CLG.EU. And this, I think, is what's making them a little bit timid to try to press for more towers and press for more objectives. They don't have a full 5v5 team fight like they did finally in that jungle area, where they're able to wall off people, separate them, and then eventually take them down. I don't think they want to engage. And as long as Wicked's being kept busy by Stanley up there, they are not going to engage in the team fight. And Caitlyn's going to continue to snowball ahead of Ezreal, almost approaching 150 CS ahead of him.
Froggen almost getting another wall, and it doesn't matter how strong Caitlyn is if Froggen's able to pick off that front line, because he has so much damage at this point in the game. He's incredibly farmed, and picking up those early kills, it puts him at the #1 for gold in the game. But we'll see if he can get in range of the rest of TPA, because they're all just kind of sitting back. They just want to sit and allow Stanley to sit off to the side. And so the result is both TPA and CLG.EU are just sitting mid, AoE clearing minion wave after minion wave, and then kind of waiting for the other to make the first mistake.
A little bit of a troll face on the screen there. It kind of caught me off guard. It's like, what is this? But speaking of being caught off guard, Tor's getting walled out, uses the ultimate. It's absolutely no one but Yellow Pete getting chunked away there by BB. Fail flash over the wall, but he's going to be okay for now. Stupid the Vengeful Maelstrom down. Little Ball's on the side, isn't getting engaged. True Shot Barrage goes across the rest of Taipei Assassins. In the middle of all this, top tower is going to go down from Wicked pushing. Kreppel has the ace in the hole, but Froggen too tanky blocks that one from Caitlyn. And that was a really close call for both sides.
Yeah, Bebe, he almost had the kill, but Froggen was able to zone him off a little bit, just not quite able to finish it. TPA now moving towards this mid turret. They know a couple of them are low. They're going to try and get some quick damage. Stanley, he has that Triforce, so he has that damage now. And watch that turret drop the Rumble ultimate, trying to force it, though. Snoopy gets in the middle of the team. Froggen being warned off by Stanley, but there's the first GA pop, and Bebe is turning it around. The wall completely zones him off, though, and CLG.EU, they're able to escape all completely because of that Froggen wall. Unfortunately, Snoopy was not quite so lucky.
Snoopy wound up going down. They did get the Guardian Angel from Toys, but now 5 members strong of Taipei Assassins looking to pressure this Baron. 4 members of CLG.EU are alive, but the ultimate from Rumble is down. The ultimate from Ezreal was used in that engagement, as well as Lulu. So Taipei Assassins, even though they're really low, they feel good about this. Look at Caitlyn taking chunks out of Baron's HP like he's nothing. They take that one down very, very easy.
Yeah, with this much damage in the game, it's hard to defend against that fast of a Baron. So CLG.EU, they lose it. It will give TPA some really nice split pushing potential because the HP regen they get from the Baron and the fact that now Stanley, he has that Triforce, it means he's going to be able to beat Wicked in that 1v1 matchup. But we'll see if he can start being the difference. But it's going to be tough because CLG.EU, they haven't been able to force a fight successfully for quite some time. And TPA now, Stanley's in a great position to just win this game for them.
Yeah, we're going to have to see the gold accounts across the board are all but even, so this is as dead even as it gets. Baron, 9 kills to 5, still in favor of CLG.EU, but the global presence of TPA Assassins taking more dragons than CLG, getting that Baron buff on, getting the gold from that, equalizing all over the place. The huge farm advantage that Caitlyn has, 135 CS over Yellow Pete's Ezreal, really starting to shine. Ezreal has gone back, gotten that last Whisper, so now he can actually shred through some of the resistances that TPA has been building. Little Ball's getting caught out a little bit here from Froggen. Twisted advance as well as the wall goes down. Little Balls is stuck on the wrong side of that Yellow Pete Arcane chase forward. They got to be careful of that Orianna ball though. TPA is coming back in.
The Ezreal all trying to force back Bebe. He will just heal off to some of those minions, and now Stanley coming in from the side. Snoopay's way out of position, and if Orianna hits a sweet ultimate, this could be it for CLG.EU. Stanley jumping right in the middle of the team. They almost get out of there. CLG being chased into their base, and there's the Orianna ultimate. Stanley, he is popped on the GA, but Bebe is perfectly safe in the backline, wearing down CLG.EU.
No one is hitting Bebe. He does get Whimsy. The tower's hitting him, but the rest of the team is not. Stanley's going to take down Froggen. Yellow Pete gets chunked out there by BB. Down goes
He's going to get the Quadra. He's chasing down Crepo. There's the Quadra kill for Bebe.
Lulu. 2 shots and he's gone. Quadra kill from TPA Assassins. Everyone from CLG.EU is down. And Baron, I think we're going to a deciding game number 3.
We are going to game number 3, and CLG.EU had a dominant early lead, but they weren't able to finish off of it. They weren't able to pull any other advantages because TPA is one of the best defensive teams in the world. TPA forcing down the Nexus now. Once they waited for their opportunity, Froggen, it wasn't enough. They were able to just bulldoze their way past those walls, past those stuns, and TPA takes this game.
TPA Assassins tying it up 1-1 here in the losers bracket. Whoever's going to win this game is going to stay and continue on into IPL5. Whoever loses, they're going to go home. They're going to have a lot to think about. But regardless of the fact, we've had 2 amazing games now. TPA Assassins, we mentioned it in the champion selection.